Hi all. You are on the Software Developer blog channel. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and also like this video. In this video, we'll talk about how not to write shitty code, or how to write clean code. I want to say right away that this question is quite hacky, and every programmer has his own concept of clean code, in connection with the requirements in a company or project. But in this video I want to share my opinion about this. It is based on my personal experience and the book that I recommend reading to every programmer. This is the author Robert Martin Clean Code. Create, Analyze and Refactor. It outlines all the principles of writing clean code. So that's what clean code is. For me there are many factors that define this concept. I came up with a sort of clean code definition for myself. Clean code. Easy to read by any developer. Easily modified by any developer. The code does what is expected of it. Clean code is important. At least as important as other characteristics such as performance, functionality. Now let's look at this in a little more detail using specific examples of factors that I try to apply. The first factor is the code should be a concept. The higher the qualifications of the programmer needed in order to understand your code, the worse it is written. Ideally, your code should be easy to read by a new person joining your team, so that he doesn't have to study it for several days before making any changes. The names of variable methods and classes should be clear and reflect their essence. Do not use hard code in the code, try to put everything into variables. Methods functions should be short and do only one thing. It is advisable that your code be covered with tests for both positive and negative scenarios. The second factor is the style code. Each programming language has its own specific code style and recommendations for it. But now I will say basic things that should be everywhere. For example, indentation between if and for, indentation between methods or functions to increase readability, and they do not merge. This also includes naming convention, namely all variables, functions, parameters, and identifiers are written in camel case. Constants are named only in capital letters using underscores to connect words and so on. This is a very important factor that should be observed. The third factor is the use of design patterns, solid, the principles of DIY, don't repeat yourself, KISS stands for, the simpler the better and much more. All of this helps make your code cleaner and easier to understand. Yes, of course, you shouldn't abuse this rule, and use design patterns wherever possible. Sometimes you can solve a problem well and quickly without them. But you still need to try to look at the problem more broadly, and think about future expansions and improvements so that they can be introduced into your code as quickly and easily as possible. The fourth factor, code does what is expected of it, which means that the program code performs certain actions and functions in accordance with the task or expectation that was set before it was written. That is, if the code was designed correctly, it will perform certain functionality and achieve its goals. In order for the code to do what is expected of it, the developer must correctly describe its logic, consider possible scenarios and conditions, and check it for errors. Expectations may vary depending on the specific problem the code needs to solve. It's also important to test your code to make sure it actually does what you expect it to do, and to make corrections if necessary. The fifth factor is to try not to leave comments in the code. It is a very bad practice to write comments on just about anything, usually if you are writing a comment on a method or variable. Then you should stop and still think about the name to reflect the essence of what you are writing in the comment. This shows more of your lack of professionalism if you cannot reflect this in the code without commenting. It is especially bad when programmers comment on part of the code and do not delete it. Probably everyone has such code on their projects. Because no one wants to take this risk and delete something that is not needed, because they are afraid that it will suddenly be needed. In fact, for this purpose there is a version control system that stores the history of your project, and you don't have to worry about immediately deleting unnecessary pieces of code. I can't say that comments are not needed. In some cases they are very useful, for example to explain a complex algorithm or regular expression. But in most cases they are not at all informative and only confuse developers, since the code changes very quickly, and comments are unlikely someone remembers to correct it. The sixth factor is not to conduct a code review. The code will not be clean if there is no code review. Even if you are a super cool developer with 20 years of experience and write perfect code, you should still have a code review. Since its purpose is to notice what you did not see when you wrote the code, perhaps give some suggestion for improvement or name, or even possibly find a bug after the review. It often happens that you work on a task for a long time and no longer notice any nuances that could be improved or corrected. This is why code reviews are carried out to make the code cleaner and better. But you shouldn't abuse this, since there are reviewers who think that they know everything better than everyone else and simply find fault with you. It's still worth sometimes entering into discussions and defending your point of view if you are confident in it and it is well reasoned. There are also many more factors of clean code. In this video, I laid out the basics that you should follow. If you want to learn more, I recommend reading Robert Martin's book Clean Code: Creation, Analysis, and Refactoring. If you follow at least these rules, your code will be much better. Write in the comments your experience, and do you think writing clean code is difficult or easy? I wish you success in your projects. I hope this video was helpful to you. Until we meet again, bye.